Hi everybody, my name is Nigel Hamilton. I'm just another Raku and Perl hacker based in Bath in the UK. And I love Perl and I love Raku. But recently, at the last contract, the management decreed that no new things would be written in Perl. And they pronounced it like Perl with a U. And that was really sad and disappointing. Because I know, like most Perl programmers, most Raku programmers, we like making new things. So that was really sad to hear. Because unfortunately, Perl and Raku are in the fight for their lives. And we have to compete for mindshare, for hearts and minds, in an increasingly crowded marketplace. And if you look at all the brands here, we need a way of having our brands standing out, holding their position, and not only just holding their position, but growing their position. So, how can Perl and Raku take their place in the hearts and minds of developers? Because unfortunately, it's not enough just for the language to succeed. In fact, the ecosystem around the language also needs to succeed. If you think of Node and NPM and other packaging systems, it's the core language, but it's also the packaging system and the other elements that go around it. And they also need to have strong brands. And if we stop and think about it, I think we can actually realize that this problem has been going on for a long time. In fact, I'd like to suggest that it was happening even before that fateful mug got thrown in the year 2000, which saw the beginnings of the Perl 6 effort. I think we had a branding problem back then. And I want to take you back there because I think we need to make peace with the past. So jump in your time machine of choice and join me back in 1999. And let's see if we can exercise some of the things that happened then so that we can move forward. Well, welcome to London, 1999. This is Canary Wharf, one of the banking districts. And I'm a new visitor to the UK. I'm on a working holidays visa and I'm starting work at Canary Wharf at a global bank in the web technology department. All good. One of my colleagues introduced me to this new search engine, Googly, which was in beta. And I thought, well, that looks pretty cool, but I use Alta Vista with their brand value was smart is beautiful. And they used to have a nice kind of mountain range as part of their icon. But as things developed with Alta Vista, it got more and more busy. And I wonder, what if their brand value had have been smart is simple? Well, things were going okay in the web technology department. There was lots of work around the bank. And one of my first projects was to create a system for the audit department, which would be rolled out in New York, Tokyo, and London. And it was used by top-level management to sign off on their various audit points. And it was written in Perl. And Perl did a great job. And within 2 months, we had this into production and we had happy clients in the bank, which was all good. But then things took a slight turn for the worse. My JBoss wanted help with a Java applet that we could write once and run anywhere around the bank. It was going to be a trading chat app, which all the traders were going to be able to chat and communicate with each other, and it was going to run fast and quick. And my boss at the time was really excited about all this. But I was a little bit worried because my experience of Java, and especially Java applets, was that actually it was a bit clunky. But the marketing department at Java was going into overdrive, and the legal department too. And we see here the Java page in 1999 with their logo in the top left-hand corner and various TMs scattered around the page. And later that year, those TMs could then be changed to R, because in the UK Trademark Office, the Intellectual Property Office, they were officially registered as a trademark. So their legal department was doing the right things as well. And they were generating buzz because they were reaching out to various corporate markets. And okay, the enterprise computing era was about to arrive just as soon as that Java applet finishes loading. But nonetheless, they had a story to tell. And even though their Java SDK was only in version 2 beta release, they were already addressing various industries, aerospace, banking, etc. So the marketing and the legal department were really building an effective brand stack. At the very base, they secured the legal rights to the brand. And then on top of that, they were developing values that could be associated with the brand. Values like ubiquitous technology, Java would help developer productivity, enterprising innovation. These were some of the values that the marketing department was looking to associate with the Java brand. And these values then found their ways into various messages. Write once, run anywhere. Oh, there's no pointers in Java. Applets are going to be the future of the web. And these messages were directed at audiences. Developers got certain types of messages, industry leaders got their messages, and enterprise managers, like my boss, like my JBoss. But a brand stack is nothing if in the end it doesn't make a connection with its audience. And ideally that needs to be, well, it has to be, some sort of emotional connection. So you might like to think of some of your favorite brands, your favorite beer. What's your emotional connection with that brand? If that brand was taken away from you, how would you feel about it? If you could no longer drink your favorite beer, for example. So the brand stack's important. It's a way of connecting with customers, with users, and ideally, each level of the brand stack needs to work with each other. So for my JBoss, he was excited and buzzed up about Java. This trader chat app was going to be fantastic. He had hope that he was going to get an even bigger bonus this year. And he was inspired by all the talk of enterprise computing on the Java website. And Java, Sun Microsystems, was paying a lot in marketing dollars to keep the buzz going, to effectively have the flow of blood going between all these messages and back to the brand to grow the goodwill of Java. And to some extent, they succeeded. But for me, as a developer, I got to admit, I had a different set of emotions because having been given the Trader chat app, I'd spent about a week and a half underneath my desk power cycling my computer because every time I loaded the applet, it would just bring my computer to a complete halt. So my emotions were quite different. This Java applet really wasn't going to work. And I was anxious about it. I was frustrated that the Java messaging didn't actually relate to the Java reality. And the truth was that this applet was not going to be able to roll out everywhere around the bank. It could barely run on my machine. So I dreaded the idea of going down to the trading floor, showing these traders and watching them gaping as the thing took ages to load up. And they just thinking of the money that was falling on the floor. So in this case, the brand stack has backfired because rather than having all those positive emotions, actually there's a cooling off as the messages don't quite add up with the brand values and the brand itself leaks reputation. So for me, Java's brand stack in 1999 looked something like this. Yes, it had a bit of legal foundation. Yes, they had some values that they were going after. And yes, some of the messages related to those values, but the reality didn't quite add up. And to survive as a strong technology, you need good technology, but you also need a strong brand stack as well. In fact, ideally, you need an authentic brand stack where all the layers of your brand stack actually add up and the messages are consistent. And when this happens, your brand, your brand starts to grow. Instead of leaking goodwill, like a battery, it starts to take charge, reputational charge, as things grow, as the various emotions and feelings are backed up by messages, the messages are coming true for the target audience. And when this happens, you get a magic result, which is audiences will introduce new audiences to your brand. It'll become a word of mouth brand rather than one that's just pumped up by corporate marketing. And in this way, the brand can really take off. And that's the essential feature of an authentic brand, and something that I think you can see would be really useful if Perl and Raku had. So it was around about this time I got out from under my desk, rebooting the machine to try and get the Java applet to run. And I took a call from my client, my first client in the bank, in the audit department. He's the head of audit. And said, Nigel, got some good news. The Perl program, the Perl system you wrote is doing really well. Some of the other managers are asking me about it, asking about the technology behind. Have you got anything you can send me about Perl? I said, sure, no problem. I was busy with the Java thing, so I quickly sent him a link to Perl.org in 1999. And something good to say about this page is that unlike the Java page, it fully loads. But then after a couple of days, the head of audit called me back and said, Nigel, I've just got a couple of questions. And when an auditor asks you, have I got a couple of questions, it's a scary moment. When the head of audit for a global bank asks you, I've just got a couple of questions, it's absolutely terrifying. And he was asking me questions like this. Nigel, you said to me that the version of Perl that we've got in production is version 5. Well, why on this website is it saying Perl's in version 2? And my answer was something like, well, I mean, I know Java's in version 2, but I mean, Perl is more mature than Java, and yes, it's version 5. So I'm not sure why it's 2. And then came the next question. Do we need to have a license with O'Reilly and Associates to use Perl? No. O'Reilly and Associates, they just sell books. Yeah, no, don't worry. There was a camel on a book once, and that's O'Reilly and Associates. No. Perl isn't owned by O'Reilly and Associates. And then the next question. Here's the Perl Institute. What do? They're dedicated to keeping Perl available. Well, in February 1999, they report a disk crash. Files are missing, and we're trying to put the pieces back together. Well, I don't know why they're saying that on the main page for Perl, but I mean, the truth is that actually there's a comprehensive archive network with almost 100 sites around the world where Perl is mirrored. So actually it's a really robust platform that the bank can rely upon. It's not just one corporate interest, it's mirrored in multiple places. And then finally asked, well, what about the Perl Institute? I read here that actually it's going to dissolve. They voted to dissolve, and now it's part of the Perlmongers. And it was at this point, like I felt like putting up my hands and going, truth is, the Perlmongers, they're just a group of camel herders that like writing software. I really felt like bailing out at that point. But I believed in Perl and Perl's technical stack. Sadly, its brand stack was all over the place. because in 1999, it seemed that Perl's brand stack was taking a loan on O'Reilly, or O'Reilly was leaning on Perl. But either way, we didn't have a strong foundation for the basis of a strong brand stack. We certainly didn't have any clear values that are associated with that brand. We didn't have messages that embodied those values, and we weren't addressing audiences with those values. And the emotions, well, I had positive emotions because I could use Perl to get things done, and it worked. But Perl's brand stack wasn't helping me. So it's little wonder then, only a year later, that mug got thrown at the Perl conference, which sparked the beginnings of Perl 6. I'm sure there were some technical problems with Perl, and I know there were. But at this point, in 2000, Java didn't even have regular expressions. They had technical problems too, but they had a much better brand stack. And that was the opportunity in 2000. It was to make amendments to the tech stack, but it was really to seize the opportunity of building a brand stack. So I think we have to make peace with this. It's happened. We can't change what's happened in the past, but we do have a chance to do something about the future. And I hope we can think positively about what we can do here. And that's what I'd like to do now. I'd like to jump back into the time machine, but this time, let's go forward. Let's go to 2025 and see what Perl and Raku could look like in 2025. Well, the first thing to say is that in 2025, the Perl Foundation is no longer. They've decided to become an authentic brand. And being an authentic brand means that all those layers need to add up. And the truth is that in 2000, the Perl Foundation had a great opportunity to not only represent Perl, but also Raku. And so the old name of the Perl Foundation really wasn't an honest representation of what the Perl Foundation does, because actually it's more than that. And so they decided to rename themselves the Artistic Software Foundation, which they could then register as their own independent trademark, and then build an authentic brand stack. And in 2020, they reached out to the community to say, well, what should the brand values be for the Perl Foundation? And thanks, by the way, to those within the community who answered this survey. And we can see here on the left-hand side the top 3 values of the TPF in 2020, but also the top 3 values hoped for in the future. And what the survey showed is that the users or the members or the people who rely on the TPF wanted it to move from a kind of a volunteer supportive organization to be more passionate about the software projects and communities that we support, to be more transparent, more professional, and more trustworthy. And that's what the TPF did in 2021. They continued this process. And with this rebranding effort, they reached out to the community again, and there was a vote, and this was the logo that got voted in, but there were other professional logos to choose from, and even different names. It wasn't necessarily the Artistic Software Foundation. And I should say this view of the future, I've taken quite a lot of artistic license for it, pardon the pun. So, but it's just one future, and it's just meant to be a kind of a guide. Because the Artistic Foundation in 2025 needed to have not just a small number of brands, they needed to have a successful, flourishing ecosystem of brands to support each other. So how did Raku go in 2025? What does Raku look like? Well, the good news is that Raku has continued its journey to build an authentic brand stack, and goodwill and reputation is growing in its brand battery. And how did they do that? Well, in August 2020, they set up the foundations they started putting in place the legal foundations for their brand stack. And the trademark was registered in the UK in August 2020. There was a little bit of a stumbling block at the US trademark office. The examiner there said, well, hang on, you're not using Raku as a trademark on your website. You need to put your hand up and say, hey, this is being used as a trademark. And so thanks to Daniel Stockwell, who works both on the Raku steering committee and in the TPF legal committee, he was able to make the change here to help satisfy the examiner's concerns, which meant that later Raku could then also be registered as a trademark in the US. And then later in 2021, the Raku community came together again to update the website with its trademarks, to signal to the user community that actually we're using this name and this is the base of our brand stack and we're proud of it. And they updated the website to actually show what their values are, rather than saying we intend to carry forward the high ideals of the Perl community. They were actually specific. During 2021, they did a survey and they found out what the actual values were of the Raku community, the distinct values. And they were able to actually clearly say what those values were. And then once they had those values, they could then begin to reach out to the early adopters for Raku. Raku's mascot in 2025, still loved, with its common law protection, TM there, and its clear license that Larry Wall wrote when he created Camelia. And Camelia's got deep and hidden meanings. So yes, there's camel in her name, but that P6 now is kind of like a scar that the community uses to remember all the hard work and effort that went in to getting Raku to where it is today in 2025. And that's something that we appreciate about the logo. Because in 2025, Raku has become known as a productive, general purpose, dynamic language. It's known to be optimized for fun. So no matter what level of ability you are, you may be a new starter or a seasoned programmer, Raku has the ability to get you into a productive state quickly. And the teaching resources that came out in 2021 helped computer science lecturers around the world create courses in CS 102 that helped give new students a taste of different paradigms, functional, procedural, OO, etc. And then later subjects in the computer science curriculum picked up Raku as a teaching language. So in 2025, people were graduating with skills in Raku. Schools were starting to take up Raku examples in their teaching because they wanted their students to be ready for what they were going to see at university. And Raku's brand stack was starting to grow organically. No big marketing budget required because its values and its messages and audiences were adding up. This meant that it started to grow. And the emotions were all good. Programmers were describing a sense of joy and elevation when they were coding in Raku. And from the business point of view, they were happy they had productive programmers creating software with Raku. Now, we are missing a piece in the puzzle here. What's this brand? In 2025, where's Perl going to be? Well, in 2021, now that the Perl Steering Council had been formed in 2020, it was time for Perl to take its place in the marketplace of ideas and software that it needed to compete against. And for the first time, it took up the challenge of building its own unique, distinctive brand stack. And in 2025, the Perl brand is growing. It's expanding. The unique values that were found in 2021 are still there. The messages still add up. and the audiences still appreciate Perl for what it is. And there are lots of positive emotions around Perl. So in 2021, the Perl.org website got a revamp. And at the moment, at 2021, the site just said, well, that's why we love Perl, but didn't really clearly say why we love Perl. And in 2021, we found out. Because Perl 7 represented a great opportunity to uncover what Perl, the brand trajectory for Perl, where the values are now and where the values will be in the future. And rather than calling it Perl 7, actually the Perl Steering Committee decided to call it a new name, Perl something. And I don't know what that name is, but it's there. And there's that camel. And when I saw this, I almost had post-traumatic stress from 1999 because it's still there. For some reason, we are using a publisher's brand on our website. So in 2021, we finally said goodbye to the camel. And importantly, we didn't replace it with anyone else's camel, because to compete in this marketplace, we actually need a distinctive brand that no one can confuse with anything else. And frankly, it's something that Perl deserves. And I think a root vegetable that makes you cry is probably also not something which would embody those values that were uncovered in 2021. So no, instead, with the help of the Artistic Foundation, or the Perl Foundation, the Perl Steering Committee, once they established what the value trajectory was, asked for 3 new brands to be designed, 3 logos to be designed, professionally designed, which then went out to the community for voting. So the community could finally get a sense of ownership over this brand, a sense of attachment to it, which is something that has previously not been the case with the camel and the onion. And so there's a real opportunity here for a fresh start, not just for the tech stack, but importantly for the brand stack. And this new alias for Perl 7 was also embodied as a literal alias inside the Perl package, so that you could invoke the Perl interpreter with this new alias as well. And by 2025, actually, users would sometimes refer to the language by its alias and not just simply Perl. So by 2025, with an authentic brand stack, actually Perl is adding up to its user base. It has clear values which result in messages that are clear. The audiences then hear messages that relate to the reality of Perl, and there's positive emotions. And there's no reason why Perl can't have its own distinct space, but it'll need an authentic brand to do it. And in 2025, there's no reason why the emotions that are associated with the Perl brand aren't ones like this. It's still a brand that we love. We're satisfied using it. It does the job. And we trust the source from where it comes. We trust the history and the testing and the blood, sweat and tears that have gone into creating Perl over the past 30 years. And the Artistic Foundation now has, in 2025, a clear set of projects and communities that it supports, and each community has its own distinct brand identity. And we're able to then support those brands to support themselves. Because in 2025, for us to succeed, we will need strong, authentic brands. And I think we can do it, because actually There's something that money can't buy with both Perl and Raku. 30 years of effort, technical effort, volunteer effort, community effort, blood, sweat and tears has gone into Perl. There's no amount of marketing budget that can buy that. There's a lot of heart in Perl. And I honestly believe it just needs to be unleashed with a proper brand stack. And we can create a brand that the community feels a part of. And likewise with Raku, it also needs to take its space, and it also will need a strong brand stack. Let's hope we can get there. Thanks for listening.